And, of course, one of our favorites, our man Jeff McLane, joins us. Jeff, good morning and welcome home.
Thanks, guys. Good morning.
So, first and foremost, I want to give you a lot of credit for your story on Vic Fangio in the Inquirer. You did it was great work. But I would love for you to talk on Vic Fangio because a lot of us just see him in the booth when he's calling plays and he's got that stone face. And by all reports, that stone face kind of follows him along. But apparently he was smiling on Sunday. Is that true, Jeff?
Yeah. Vic is known as a taciturn type guy. I wouldn't say exactly morose, but it's kind of a joke about how little he smiles or laughs. And I not only did I write a feature story heading into the Super Bowl about Vic, just about his really the impetus for it was that I'd spoke to him before the season, and just kind of say, it's been obviously 38 years in the NFL, and you haven't won a title, you've been close, and you just had some unfortunate circumstances as well, and just how the game was back in New Orleans. I knew he had gotten close in 2013 with the Saints. And it was just funny, it is, it is, he said then, it is, he obviously he knew of it, and he knew he had a good team. I don't think he quite, thought that it would turn out this way, because I guess you never think championship at the beginning of the season, although you may have the type of roster to do so, but, that was kind of the idea for the feature story, and the fact that he'd come back there, that's also where he got to start in the NFL. Despite the personality and the gruff front and maybe the way that he could be very straightforward in terms of how he talks to the players, it works. And on top of that, just obviously, as we saw on Sunday, just the defense that he schemed up, the game plan that he devised, the way that he called the game, didn't blitz once, which is just amazing when you think about how he's been embracing this city. Certainly when you have the number one defense, that's easy, but this defense this town has always loved aggressive defenses, Buddy Ryan and Jim Johnson, guys that just love the blitz. And, Vic has always said, why send more than 4 when you don't have to? Right? The whole defense is kind of based upon just being able to drop as many guys as you can in the coverage, and you marry that up with a very good 4-man rush, and that's what you saw on Sunday.
Jeff, when you look at the job that was done by this coaching staff this year, and you compare and contrast it to maybe other years that you've seen the Eagles organization have some really good staffs, is there anything this group did differently? Is there anything different about the approach this year that sticks in your mind?
Well, I think if you just go back to what happened last year around in January when they had to, they had to look at themselves, and Nick certainly was a question about whether he'd return or not, and they said, okay, no, we want to keep Nick. We still love a lot of what he brings here. Let's get rid of the coordinators. Let's bring in 2 new guys. So you got Vic Fangio, right? This is a guy who's done it before, right? And just for whatever reason hadn't won a Super Bowl, but he's always had innovative defenses and it's been copied around the league. Let's get the original guy. We wanted this scheme in here in the first place. That's why we brought Gannon. That's why we hired one of his acolytes in Sean Desai. And then you bring in Kellen Moore, a guy who's done it well in terms of the play calling. But, it all starts with Nick. He is the head coach. And, there are, in terms of the passion and the emotion that he brings to that position, I think there's been a lot of focus on how it can be a detriment sometimes. But obviously, coming off a Super Bowl, you got to focus on the positive behind it and why he can relate to the players and why they want to play for him and why he does all the little things behind the scenes to make them believe in him and his approach. And, that's all culture stuff. And that, I think there's a lot more to Nick than just that. I've reported this since October. I reported since the offseason. The offense is not his. There's still a lot of what he had devised and schemed up when he first got here. And in fact, when they got into the bye, they went back to a little more of that because that was the stuff that Jalen had been comfortable in. And, that's Nick, and he doesn't get a lot of credit for that because there's these narratives out there that just aren't entirely fair.
Speaking of Jalen, we know that since they've won the Super Bowl, he's still kind of been his robotic self, and he's opening up a little bit more. But before the game itself, he did talk about how the doubt and disrespect always fuels him. You're inside the locker room. You know Jalen more than a lot of people, including John and I. How much do you think winning the Super Bowl truly meant to him as a person? Because he is somebody that would hide, I believe, his true emotions.
I mean, yeah, I can't claim to know him very well, even having covered him. But, but I'm around him a lot, and he has to answer our questions. And, there's occasional times when you maybe get a glimpse into Jalen here and there, and if you have conversations. But, of course, I mean, this is everything that, he's played and practiced for and devoted his life to, and that's winning the championship. So how could it not mean a lot to him? I saw it certainly in the locker room, the way he celebrated, the way he took a moment of reflection by himself in that hallway when he kind of slid down the wall. You saw him sitting there puffing away at the cigar, and yeah, I mean, like he's gone through a lot. It goes back to Channelville. I've done stories on that. Talked to his father, his assistant coaches there, and stuff like that. I mean, that wasn't really a program that had done well, and in fact, he led them to their first playoff appearance in like 20 years when he was there, and he wasn't really recruited at first a lot. I mean, he had some offers. I think, and I think one of the coaches had told me a story about how his father had one time brought a recruiter into the office and then called in his offensive line and said, "Yeah, this is the offensive line my son's playing behind." And it was like,
"Oh my gosh!"
Yeah, just to kind of prove the point that like there was a reason why maybe the numbers weren't there or they weren't winning the way you were doing. So, and then of course he goes to Alabama. We know that story. Got benched, and even in Philly, he's certainly had his travails as well. And I mean, certainly going to the playoffs 4 times, again the Super Bowl 2 years ago. But then this past year, he's had his struggles. I mean, those first 2 games of the playoffs, he didn't play particularly well. Now he was coming off the concussion; he had missed some time. There was the snow against the Rams, and AJ wasn't at completely 100%, so there's reasons for that as well. But in the 2 biggest games of the season, Jalen played his best football this year, and that says a lot about him.
Mike Groh, a name from the past. Brian Johnson, now down in Washington. The Birds, once again, will have to have a new offensive coordinator. It's my opinion that you can't go to yet another unproven one, a play caller, because you've seen it twice fail in pretty big fashion. What is your thought on it, and what any intelligence you can share with us on the search?
Well, I think you have to certainly learn from past mistakes. With Mike Groh, it was that had I think more to do a little more. I'd point the finger more at Wentz than Groh, but
okay.
Certainly you learn from your mistakes, right? But those two shouldn't have any correlation to Petula, because you want to look at Petula for himself, right? You want to evaluate him based on his own resume and what you know about him. But what we do know about him is that, yes, he's never called plays in the NFL. He's never run a scheme. We don't know what his scheme is. I would think that for the most part, it's what he had run, what Nick had run with Frank Reich and in Indianapolis with the Colts, and that was the scheme that they had said was stale a couple of years. So I'm sure Kevin, there's probably more that he'd like to do beyond that. So they'll look at him, and he'll certainly get the interview. I know that there's internal support for him. There's a lot of people in that building that like him and want him to get that job. That being said, I do agree with you that Jeff and Howie are going to oversee this. I'm not saying that they're necessarily going to make the decision. They're going to let Nick take the lead here, but they're going to be involved as well. And they may be like, "Hey, Nick, let's." They're going to interview. They're going to interview more than just Kevin Petula. They're not just going to hand it to him. But the issue then is, there's a lot of offensive coordinators that have been hired. How many are left that you want to consider? And we've already heard several names. And other names will start to come out as well.
Hey, Jeff, real quick before we let you go, and thanks for the time as always. I just want to know what the tone was. I read your article this morning. I know you posted it 2 days ago, the Vic Fangio article, but also Josh Sweat. And you have the quote from him about the MVP. And he said, "I should have had it. I could have had it. It's all good, though." I just want to know, what was the tone when he said that?
Well, Well, I put out a podcast episode yesterday.
Okay.
So some of the sound, and that was one of the quotes we put in there, because I basically kind of tried to take you guys behind the scenes in the locker room. I went to the championship party as well afterwards, and actually went to a casino afterwards with some of the players. So that quote's in there. No, he was, he was in the moment, but he was also, it's okay, he wasn't like, no, he was
I figured. I just wanted to make sure because I read it, and when it's in print, you don't hear it.
Well, I had one of the MVP votes. I've already disclosed that on Twitter. So full transparency, I voted for Josh.
Okay.
And I think we're just talking about that, but then that's what brought it up. But it wasn't meant to be a negative it was just it was a positive. And look, Josh played great. I thought when the game was in the bounce, his performance was pivotal. That's why I picked him for the MVP. But Jalen Hurts was just as deserving and played wonderfully. So I would never take anything away from his performance. And when you have an overwhelming victory like that, there are multiple candidates. Nolan Williams could have gotten it. Jalen Carter could have gotten it. I know the numbers don't say as much, but if you look at how many double teams that he drew, he could have gotten it. Cooper DeJean's interception, the pick six, was huge at that time. 10-0 turned into 17-0. So there were a lot of guys. It's tough. Football is the greatest team sport. It's tough to pick out one guy when everyone is dependent upon each other. It's typically easy at the quarterback position because it is the most important position on the field, and Jalen was a good selection. I went with Josh Sweat, but Jalen ended up winning it, so kudos to him.
Jeff, you're our MVP. I just want you to know.
Great job,
You're
Jeff.
our MVP.
You had a really good time, and you got to get some time off.
Get some sleep.
Some time
We'll
off.
continue to bug you every week, though, because
Hey guys, Andrew Salciunas from Kincade and Salciunas. Thank you for checking out all of our stuff on YouTube. Make sure you click, like, subscribe on everything that you see. And of course, you can see everything from our YouTube feed, full shows, interviews, when John's being an idiot, which is like 15 times a day. So make sure you check out all of our stuff on YouTube. We appreciate it.